Rest in peace, John Amos. You know, John Amos is one of those black actors who doesn't get enough love. Because if we look at the history of pop culture, especially when it comes to black actors, black TV shows, black movies, he doesn't get enough praise because he played 3 iconic roles and 1 underrated iconic role. So before I get into that, I'm looking at this picture of John Amos as James Evans and as the role as Florida Evans. And it's funny because they were great on camera together. They were great. And then off camera, they respected each other. But Esther Rolle was 19 years older than John Amos. John Amos was 19 years younger than Esther Rolle. And they looked great together, but he was 19 years younger than his TV wife. But he was also only 9 years older than Jimmy Walker. Jimmy Walker was in his mid-20s when he got casted as JJ. And JJ was like the oldest son, but he was still in high school. So John Amos was 9 years older than his TV son and 19 years younger than his TV wife. That's crazy. So let's get into the iconic stuff that John Amos did that we don't talk about enough. So John Amos, his first iconic role was playing Gordy the Weatherman on the Mary Tyler Moore Show. Mary Tyler Moore is one of the best shows ever. I don't care what you tell me. The writing was great. The acting was great. Their cast was superb. And John Amos was there the first 4 years when he played Gordy. And Gordy was not a stereotypical black character. Gordy, yeah, he was black, but Gordy, he was funny, he was witty, he was cool. He fit right in with Ted and Mary and Lou and Murray. It was a great fit. And I think John Amos always said that being on Mary Tyler Moore was just one of his best roles ever, and he loved the cast. It's fantastic. And the only reason he left, and he was nominated for an Emmy too, the only reason he left was that he was asked to read for the role as James Evans on Good Times. If it wasn't for that, John Amos probably would have stayed the whole time the show was on, or he maybe would have got a spinoff. Just like, Valerie Harper got the Rhoda spinoff and Cloris Leachman got the Phyllis spinoff. Gordy could have got one maybe in the probably mid to late 70s, but we'll never know. But yeah, shout out to Gordy the Weatherman. So John left Mary Tyler Moore and then he went to Good Times where he played James Evans. The reason the Evans family, okay, you know what? I'll tell you this. I was going to say something. I'm going to tell you this. So when he passed away, the Hollywood Reporter, when he was writing about John Amos, they said he played the stoic James Evans on Good Times. James Evans was not stoic. James Evans was a hardcore black father who wanted the best for his family. James Evans loved his wife. He loved his kids. And they were basically the working poor. And they lived in a terrible apartment building in a rough area of Chicago. But guess what? His kids were fed. His kids were happy, and his kids were safe. And Florida and James always supported their dreams. Like JJ wanted to be an artist. Thelma wanted to be a dancer. And Michael was militant because the original creators of the show were 2 black men, Eric Monti and Mike Evans. So they wanted to depict a strong black family in the hood, right? And shout out to John Amos, because he was always fighting the producers and the writers to make sure the Evans family, especially JJ, didn't turn cartoonish, that they didn't become stereotypes. So Eric and Mike might have created the show, but once the show started, they lost control of that show, which was a Norman Lear production. And then the writers, it's like it was a constant fight between John Amos and the writers to make sure the Evans family stayed true. So, but the problem happened is once Jimmy Walker started saying dynamite and dynamite blew up, and you saw Jimmy Walker t-shirts and lunchboxes, and Jimmy Walker probably got invited to the Playboy Mansion, and Jimmy Walker was on Battle of the Network Stars fighting against Gabe Kaplan. Jimmy Walker got all this stuff because Jimmy Walker was a stand-up comedian. So if you're him and you're in your mid-20s and you're getting all this stuff, you don't care about stereotypes. So John Amos was losing the war because Jimmy Walker's like, listen, bro, I'm about to make this paper. So you can fight if you want to. I'm gonna wear this chicken hat and say dynamite every week. But it was hard because John was like, I don't think Jimmy understand what John was trying to do. It's like, listen, you can still be a star, but just don't make them a cartoon. Don't make you a cartoon. So after a while, the writers got tired of John. The producers got tired of John, and they killed off James Evans, which to me was one of the most horrible things ever. Now, his death gave us one of the best iconic lines ever by Florida Evans, that damn one of the best lines ever. But by doing so, they killed off the black father. And I think for the writer's point of view and the producer's point of view, I think they always wanted Florida to be a single mom. I think they wanted to play into that stereotype that there's no black fathers who care about their kids. There's no black fathers who marry the mother of their children. They wanted to stick to that stereotype even back then. So they killed off James. They could have recasted him, but they didn't. They just killed him off. And later, Esther Rolle left, the show came back, and then Moses Gunn popped up. I think Moses Gunn ended up being her. I can't remember if they got married or not. So they brought in another older black man, but he wasn't James Evans. So then John Amos, he gets killed off of Good Times, and then he ends up on Roots. He plays the older Kunta Kinte. Now listen, there's nothing any actor could have done to outdo the young Kunta Kinte played by LeVar Burton. He was 19 years old, and that guy was a star. You can't get any better than the younger Kunta Kinte. Now, listen, John Amos's older Kunta was great. He was wise. He was regal. He cared about his family. But there's nothing you could have had Denzel at his peak. He was younger then, but playing that role, it's like there's nothing you could do. LeVar was just great, but John did a really good job playing the older Kunta Kinte. And then we flash forward years later, and John Amos plays the lovely Sherry Headley's father, Mr. McDowell, in Coming to America. Eddie Murphy's Coming to America. They're McDonald's. We're McDowell's. It was great seeing the recently passed away James Earl Jones going back and forth, because James Earl Jones was a king, and McDowell felt like, well, I'm the king of McDowell's. So it was great seeing that interaction between those two men. So yeah, and then later he got The West Wing, and I think he played Tommy's father and Martin. So John Amos had a really good long career, but I don't think he gets enough love that he deserved. And the beautiful thing, I'll say this, the sad thing about his passing away, it reminds me of, I don't have any black fathers on TV anymore. Like the last time that I saw two black American fathers on TV, it was Randall on This Is Us and Andre on Blackish. And now you have the father, I think the father, we have a black father on Bel-Aire, but I think their family's African. Like I'm talking about like black American fathers. We just don't see it anymore. And there's a lot of black kids who don't have fathers. There's a lot of black kids who do have fathers. But there's a lot of black kids who don't have fathers. And sometimes when you see a man who kind of looks like you on TV, it's like, oh, okay. Like my dad might not be around and my dad might be going through some issues, but I can learn from Randall on This Is Us. I can learn from Andre from Blackish. Like I was watching The Fresh Prince the other day with Uncle Phil. Like Uncle Phil's a direct descendant from James Evans. But the only difference is Uncle Phil was a judge. So where James was a working man, trying to make ends meet, Uncle Phil was a judge, but it was both the same. There were no nonsense men. It kind of goes back to what the Hollywood Reporter is saying, that James Evans was stoic. Uncle Phil was not stoic. Uncle Phil say, listen, I can laugh with you and I love you, but I want you kids to be successful. I'm not playing around. And a lot of times what happens on TV shows, it happened with like Family Matters, like the parents become the joke. That's fine. Like shout out to Reginald Van Johnson. Like he did what he could with that script. But the kid should never be smarter than the adult. It was too much of that after a while. So that's why Uncle Phil was important. This is why James Evans is important. And kudos to John Amos for fighting for the rights to make his black family not stereotypical, fighting for the rights of black fatherhood on TV. We need more black fathers, period. But we need more depictions of black fathers on TV. Not just be the inspiration for kids, but also black fathers in real life. It's like, man, I don't know what to do. You can watch this TV show. It's like, oh, okay. I think I might try that. But when you don't have that imagery, what do you have? So shout out to James Evans, a.k.a. John Amos. He was the real deal. Great actor, great man, great TV dad, great real dad. Rest in peace, sir.